readers. We're here for lesson 2 for reading on how you can solve a mystery before our detective in the story does. So we're going to first, I'm almost ready to read more of this awesome read aloud, but there's one thing I have to do first. I need to ask myself some questions. I need to be ready to read a mystery, so I have to mentally prepare for that. We need to become the crime solver, be part of the story. We need to step into the shoes of the detective. We want to figure out the mystery before the book tells it to us. To do this, we need to think like a detective. And I need to name chapter 1. We read it and we talked about we were going to name it. Well, I can tell you I did come up with 2 names. One was a spy. The other was codes. I'm wondering what you came up with. You were to write them down last time. I wonder what you did. Well, let's find out. Today I want to teach you that a mystery reader tries to solve the mystery before the crime solver does. To do this, the mystery reader pays attention to the story details that might be clues. And then you use those clues to help them figure out the mystery, to predict the solution. So I have a little mystery for you before I even start reading. What time of day do you think it is? Maybe this will help. Candlelight. Not as bright as it had been earlier today when we spoke. Yes, you're right. It's dusk. I can still see my whole backyard, but it's kind of not quite as bright as it had been. So we took those little details of things and we put them together. And what did we get? A solution to my question or an answer. And that's what a good detective does. So let's give this a try. When you think like a detective, you pay close attention to the details that might be clues. You are on high alert, aware that anyone could be a suspect or that anything could be a clue. The thing is, there's usually loads of clues that are flying all over the place for mysteries, and it's hugely important to pay close attention at the start of the mystery and hold on to those clues. So let's start chapter 2 in Third Grade Detectives, The Clue, The Left-Handed Envelope. Chapter 2. And remember, we're going to name it. That looks easy, Amber said. Mr. Merlin smiled. Amberly is such a show-off, Noelle thought. She looked around the room. Everyone was busy trying to solve the secret code. And remember, he had given them this code. Okay. EENPXVOLE. Noelle raised her hand. She waved it around several minutes before Mr. Merlin saw it. Yes, Mr. Merlin said. I think it's too easy, Noelle said. Mr. Merlin smiled again. Amberly gave Noelle a dirty look. I don't think it looks too easy, Todd whispered. Noelle didn't think it looked easy either, but she wasn't going to admit it to anyone, especially to her. Mr. Merlin let them work on the secret code for 15 minutes. Here it is. Okay. I'm going to let you look at it while I keep reading, okay? For 15 minutes. When the time was up, nobody had solved it. Mr. Merlin stood up. If you're a spy, okay, you may have to solve secret codes without any help, he said. But sometimes you have a code book to use. The code book has rules to follow. I'll give you 3 rules for this secret code. Great, Noelle thought. If she had the rules, she was sure she could solve the secret code. Then she could solve the mystery. Mr. Merlin wrote the rules on the chalkboard. He wrote them next to the secret code. The middle of the clock is X. You need to start at noon. You should follow the hands. Noelle studied the rules carefully. The middle of the clock is X. What clock was he talking about, she wondered. She saw an X. but she didn't see a clock. You need to start at noon. Did that mean they had to wait until noon? No, Mr. Merlin told them to work on it now. You should follow the hands. What hands? Noelle wondered. She didn't see any hands either. She sighed. She rested her chin in her hand. From where she was sitting, she could see the big clock on the wall in the classroom. That one behind me. And I have one right here. Try to get it out for you. There we go. Clock. With hands. Okay. Or what it looks like. Classroom clock. Okay. She always liked to watch the big red second hand as it raced around the numbers. It made her think that, she stopped. That's it, she thought. She raised her hand. I can solve it, Mr. Merlin. And that is the end of chapter 2. What would you name it? Can you solve the code? All right. You might have some ideas. I know when I first read it, I did. Mr. Merlin's clues were the middle of the clock is an X. You need to start at noon. You should follow the hands. I like to go back and rethink about these clues before I move forward in a story. Jot down any of your thoughts. Can you solve this? All right. Let's look back at the book at another line that was in there. She always liked to watch the big red second hand race around the numbers. What do you think? We are thinking like detectives. We are being suspicious of everything. Now remember, that's what she said in her head before she said it made her think that. And then she stopped and raised her hand and said she could solve it. So somewhere in that thought made her realize it. Do you know? Jot it down. So as you're thinking about those clues and what I just reread, do you see how we read suspiciously, almost like we are the detective? We look for hints that could help us figure out the mystery, that could help us predict how it will turn out. Our goal is to solve the mystery even before the crime solver does. Look back, think back. I'm going to read you just a little more into chapter 3. But I want to know, did you name chapter 2 yet? I did. The name of my chapter 2 is Stop and Think. What'd you name it? All right, here we go. I'm going to read a little more. You're going to try it. Be on alert for clues. When you think you have spotted a possible clue, think, what might the clue mean? And what does it suggest might happen next? You'll have a chance to share, well, not with your partner, but on your jots. Here we go. Or at morning meeting tomorrow. Amberly stood up. She can't solve my mystery, she cried. Amberly, Mr. Merlin said, please sit down. He took a deep breath. Remember that you're the one who asked the class to solve your mystery, he said. Amberly sat down. She rolled her eyes at the ceiling. Okay, she said. Mr. Merlin looked at Noelle. You may tell us what you think the secret code says. Noelle walked to the front of the room. She smiled at everyone. She even smiled directly at Amberly. She tried to make a nice smile. Amberly pretended to read a book. This secret code was very hard, Noelle said. I thought and 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 thought. Okay, Noelle, Mr. Merlin stopped her. We get the picture. Could you please continue? Finally, when I saw the big red second hand on the clock, Noelle continued, I knew how to do it. You pretend the X is the middle of a real clock. If you start at noon, that means you start at 12 o'clock. On a real clock, 12 would be the middle of, in this case, I'm going to hold this up, the E. So if that's the middle of the clock, we go directly up to that E. Okay? And that is where I'm going to stop. What can you tell? If you need to rewind to hear me read that part again, go ahead. But I'm not going to share it tonight. I want to see what you come up with. So, what clues did you get? What might they mean? How do they fit into the mystery? You're going to need to stop and jot off, and in your own mystery, then you're going to need to predict and read on, because mystery readers think and talk. Even if it's not to somebody else, you can talk in your head like a detective. This seems weird because, or maybe it could mean, or another possibility is that, or that's making me think, or maybe it could be, or I wonder why, or I think it fits with the big mystery because, that's what you need to do. So, it's going to be reading time in just a moment, and you're going to reread important parts of your mystery just like we did. You're going to be sure to pause. You're going to be sure to ask yourself questions. What does this mean? How might it fit into the big mystery? Here are some ideas you can use to keep track of your suspects and clues. Post-it notes in your notebook. Make a chart like I have here. You could have suspects on one side and clues on the other. That might help. You could use the packet that I gave you. I'm not going to require you to use one or the other, but if you feel more comfortable with your notebook, go with that. If you want to start using this, go with this. You have a suspect's name, reasons they might be suspicious, or just, it could be, in this case, it's not a suspect quite yet, but you could just put the clues in for the reasons. So clues here, however you want to use it. These are just tools for you to solve and organize your thoughts. Solve the crime and organize your thoughts. Write about details that could be clues. Even if it isn't a clue, it might be. Reread a part of your book. Predict what will happen next. And remember, predictions are predictions. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but if we don't make a prediction, we're never right. So at least try. All right. Before I send you off, I want you to remember today you were taught that a mystery reader has to solve the mystery before a crime solver does it. You need to pay close attention to the story details that might be clues, and you need to predict those solutions by looking at the clues. Reread. All right. Good luck, my detective friends.